Hi, Anne. My name is Tolu Kolade. I am a Nigerian and I love your podcast. I listen every week and I discovered it last year, and I must say it has been an incredible eye opener for me, helping me to get better in my craft. Even as a Nigerian and an African, there are many tips that are so useful for me. And guess what? You inspired me to also create my own podcast, which is also based on voiceovers. So I love what you do and keep doing what you do. Thank you.
Hey, bosses, are you struggling with that ever-elusive, real, conversational, authentic, like you're talking to your best friend, read? Book coaching with me, and I'll help you take your voiceover to a real and believable place. Find out more at anneganguza.com.
It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Anne Ganguza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast and the Boss Superpower Series. I'm your host, Anne Ganguza, and I am here with the lovely Lau Lapides.
Hey, Annie.
Woo-hoo.
Always
Hey,
happy to be back in the sack.
Lau, you are so lovely. You know what?
Thank you.
This week, I've been thinking. There are so many of my students, and I'm quite sure that this happens to you frequently being an agent and being a coach, is that people are always trying to put on these particular voices, right? That they feel like should be the voiceover voice, right? And I know we've done episodes on this and we sound like maybe a broken record, or maybe bosses out there, you've heard this before. We really love your original voices. I think there's so many people that get into voiceover because they feel like they've got these great voices in their head. They can do great imitations, and then when they get behind a mic, they perform. And in reality, what most people want, I think, and what I demand from my students is give me your voice, because that pretty voice just is super boring. What are your thoughts on that, Lau?
Yeah, we were just talking about this just a moment ago, that casting directors and agents are really, really now looking for the real voice, the real sound. And we've been doing some animation in-house workshops and talking to animation casting directors who are saying 80% of the talent that they are hiring now for big feature film and TV series are their voices. It's their voices.
Real voices.
They're real voices. It reminds me of when we saw the earlier animations of like the 90s and the 2000s, when we saw the Ice Age and all of that. We'd see the A-list actor personalities, Queen Latifah and Ray Romano and all of that, and they were them. And they were recognizable, and they were them. And you thought, wow, why aren't they putting on a character? They're actors. They can put on a character. Well, why would they? They have a huge following. We want to hear their voice. We want to know who they are. So I think some of those trends started with some of the A-listers, the Tom Hanks, that came in and really provided their everyday sound for these heightened, larger-than-life characters, and commercial as well.
You know, I always wonder, like, what is it about voiceover when I get my students in? What is it about when people first start, when they think that we don't want to hear their voice? They're always like, and now I'm going to read a medical narration. And I'm like, no, I don't want to hear it like that. I want to hear your voice telling me or educating me about it in a confident way. But I don't want to hear this this kind of air that they have and that they put on their voice. And I think a lot of times people like listen to what they hear out there. There's a lot of that out there. And that's kind of unfortunate, because that gives people preconceived notions of what is the right way to sound. There is no right way to sound. I think there's really just your way and your genuine way to sound. And that's what we find so intriguing.
It's true. And many of us, too, at least in our generation, we grew up on Disney, and we grew up on programming where we did hear those sounds. That was in our heads as little kids. We were imprinted with those sounds, and we had the bedtime story when we heard Snow White and Cinderella. And when we grew up with the fairy tales, the folklore, we heard those exaggerated character and sometimes even caricature sounds in our cartoons as well. Many of our cartoons as well were over the top, larger than life, over the top, unrecognizable to who that person was. So there was a style of those times that doesn't translate quite as well to these times. These times are much more real, authentic, down to earth, relatable, all the things that you see in the specs of your breakdown of your auditions for like a commercial. You're also going to see the heightened characters as well. So be prepared for that. Like start to be at home with what your authentic sound is.
And then I'm going to add on top of that, right? Be comfortable with your voice. Embrace your voice and embrace your voice in all levels of emotion and point of view, because that's where I think a lot of times people will think, but I sound so flat and I sound so boring. And I'm like, but you're not. When you talk to me, right, in this session that we're having right here, when you talk to me, you're not boring. You're not flat at all. There's a dynamic to your voice. There's emotion. There's point of view. And I think that's the real key right there is bring you with that point of view and that emotion that really brings the story to life. I talk to my students all the time and I say, we tell stories all the time. And when we do that, we have evolving points of view that happen throughout the story, right? From maybe the beginning of your sentence starts in one point of view and then it ends up in another because, oh my God, you're not going to believe what I did last night. And let me tell you. And so in reality, like you can be excited, you can be exaggerated and then mysterious. And then like, well, first of all, this unfortunate thing happened, but then, oh my gosh, right? And so your emotion is evolving as you tell the story. And I feel like that can be in your voice and it allows your voice to have many different textures and many different sounds that are very much authentic and not charactery.
That's right. And the truth is like when we're in a conversation, whatever that conversation is, it would be the last thing that comes to our mind. Oftentimes what we sound like or what we look like, because we're thinking of other things. We're connecting to the person. We're thinking of where we're going next. We're talking about our cat. We're doing whatever we're doing. But we stop the action. We stop the authentic doing when we go into process and start looking at, critiquing, criticizing, ripping apart, whatever action verbs you want to use. When we look at ourselves and listen to ourselves, that's when we break the chain of the actual connection. So if a casting director says to you after an audition, disconnected, you weren't connected.
Yeah.
That means you were in your head. You were thinking about lines, copy, or what you sound like, or the
words.
Mechanics, right? Like you're not at that last final destination yet. You're not with me yet. You're not in the room with me. You're inside of yourself. And so that to me is a quick indication if you're saying, what did that sound like? Did I sound real? I already know you didn't sound real. You didn't sound real because we wouldn't be thinking about sounding real. We would be thinking about persuading that person to get the prescription medication that they really need so that they don't die, right? We're not thinking about, did I sound authentic? Talking to them about the medication.
And I think a lot of it is when we get those words in front of us, that's what throws everybody off, right? Because all our lives we've been trained to read out loud, right? To read out loud. I say that 3 times again. Read out loud, which is nothing like acting. No. Right? No. Reading out loud is nothing like acting. And so I have so many people who are like, but I don't understand. Like, how do I connect to it? I would never say that. And again, that is our job is to make those words sound believable and create the scenes in which those words would come out of our mouths in a believable and authentic way. And so you have to stop looking at the words as if they are words. There has to be so much more beyond those words on the page.
Right.
And I think a lot of times I emphasize what's almost more important is it's easy to figure out who you are if you're just you, right? You're representing a company, you're trying to convince somebody that this is a great product or whatever it is you're trying to do. But really thinking about the person you're talking to, like have empathy. I say this so many times is that empathy is like number one rule, I think, for being really engaging and understanding who it is that you're talking and being able to connect with them. Because having empathy and understanding what are their pain points, how is it that your product is going to help them, is going to really, I think, help you to tell that story or be more authentic sounding.
Yes, no question about it. And you and I have that sensitivity about the word read. Read is kind of like, it's not in our realm to read. We don't read for a living. We read scripts. We have to read scripts.
Yes.
But the brain process is the reading of it first for comprehension's sake. And then once you're comprehending what is being done, you're processing it. You don't want to go into auditions and you don't want to go into recording sessions processing it. That's before. And then as you process it, you get to your interpretation.
Yeah.
Then
absolutely.
now we're talking. Then you want your interpretation to start come out into your delivery. So allowing that time, allowing the brain power to happen, allowing that to say my reading is at the beginning of the process. It is not when I'm auditioning or when I'm working on a gig. Now, I'm not reading. In fact, I should even know the copy is the truth.
Yeah.
Really great actors who are doing voiceover copy, half of them are not even reading it. They're just already interpreting it and memorizing it because they're actors for on camera. So they're taught to memorize.
Yeah, and well, memorization is helpful if you've got a short script. However, a lot of the genres that I deal with, it's not a short script and it's not practical necessarily to memorize. However, I will say that you're doing something similar, not necessarily, you're not memorizing, but you're reading far enough ahead, right? So that you understand where did the story go, right? Because you got to know where the story ends up so that you can like formulate how it begins. It's like you can't tell a good story unless you know that story. And so you can't evolve a point of view unless you know like where you're going with it, really. You can discover it along the way if you have really well-written script, right? Or if you have easy to understand script. And I'll tell you, a lot of times in commercial copy or corporate narration copy or e-learning copy, it's not the easiest script. A lot of times it's not a dialogue between two people, which I think is the easiest to understand, right? And to be the most comfortable with sounding like you're talking to someone is if you're actually reading copy that's written that people are talking to someone. When you have copy that's written in any other kind of format, like second or third person, then it becomes a whole different story. How are you making that sound like you're actually talking to someone? Because it's not written in a dialogue format. And so that's where I think the disconnect comes for a lot of people. When they don't know where they are in the scene and they don't know who they're really talking to, they haven't thought about it or researched it or analyzed it, they then just read the words. And then it becomes very neutral.
It becomes neutralized. And that's fascinating in your daily conversations, too. I think you'll notice that people stop speaking when they're processing information.
Yes.
And a lot of times I'll have people, my husband says this to me all the time. He said, stop bulleting thoughts at me. I'm still processing what you said earlier. I can't interpret what you're doing right now. It's too fast for me. So
would you say stop bullying? Did he say stop bullying your points at me?
Bulleting. Like shooting it at me, like boom, 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 that kind of thing. So, but in the daily conversation of many people, you're actually not processing quite as fast, especially new information or technical information. And so it would be unfair. It would be unfair to say, well, give me emotion about it. Give me a feeling about it, which I do to him all the time. Tell me how you feel. He said, I don't know how I feel. I'm still processing it. So that's the lesson of the day is like, that makes sense. If you're not emoting authentic feeling, it's because you're still processing it.
Right.
And you've got to do that first. You've got to get through that first. That is not the end, though. That's not the outcome.
The top layer is your emotion, is your point of view. That is what brings your unique perspective and your unique read and what casting directors are looking for usually all of the time, right? They're looking for that. Bring you to the copy. What does that really mean? Well, that means bring a point of view to that copy and bring a point of view that makes sense. I mean, obviously, if you're championing a product, you want to make sure you're championing a product and you're not like angry or miserable about it unless the dialogue calls for it. So you need to get to that last layer, which is that evolving point of view, which makes the connection and really allows people to also comprehend what you're saying easier. Because if you're neutral, if your point of view is just like, hi, I'm going to read the words really nicely and very consistently, and I'm not really going to put any sort of emotion on it, and I'm going to do this for the next 2 minutes.
Right.
And I sound like a voiceover artist, right? But in reality, you haven't told the story. You haven't allowed anyone to hear that and then process it. You haven't helped them in their comprehension. Typically, like as you and I are talking today, right? I'm like, well, I don't go, well, we've got this, right? I don't go, well, we've got this.
Annie, that sounds excellent to me.
Yes. Yes, it does. And it helps really people to hear and comprehend and understand what you're saying so much better than a simple, like, run-of-the-mill, medium, neutral kind of a read, which most people seem to do on long-format narration copy. They tend to think it's like a documentary. But in reality, the focus of you, if you're actually doing a documentary, and I always tell people, like, what's the difference? It's written like a documentary. Why should I not sound like a documentary? Well, typically with a documentary, and those of you that love documentaries such as myself, you're watching a video, which completes a story for you. There's a visual, right? And there's also music maybe, which also helps in the story, right? Your voice is simply supporting the documentary. So you need to just be able to tell the story, no matter what the media is underneath you. And the best kind of story to tell is one that's real and authentic. And that's why I think so many casting directors, Lau, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think so many people ask for that real read because you can put any kind of music under a real read. You can put any kind of video under a real read and it will work. You can put something really dramatic.
Yes.
And if somebody's like, hey, this is the story and I'm going to tell it to you like it really is, right? You can put dramatic music behind that. You could put dramatic visuals and it works. And you could also put something that's very soft and not dramatic and that storyline still works.
Absolutely.
But if you're dramatic and you're fighting with other dramatic elements of a production, that doesn't always work.
Nope. Doesn't always work. Doesn't always work. That's a good little formula to think about. And then I want to take a couple steps back and say, okay, here we go to the tough stuff. And that is before you even do anything, meaning reading, prospect, audition, or copy, how do you feel about yourself? How do you feel? Ooh, we're getting deep. How do you feel about what you have to say, how you say it, how you feel about it, how you feel in your life? Because that is also going to be transmitted as well through all of this. You lack confidence, you lack self-esteem, you lack your know-how about who you are as a person, the more you're going to be freaking out about the work that you're doing. You're just always going to feel like you're never bringing it. You're never bringing it to the table. And you're going to start to become super biased and super, super highly critical about yourself where you can no longer trust your self-direction.
Yeah. I hear that a lot from some students that come into the industry and they try to sound a particular way. Right? And they think, do I have what it takes? I get that question probably on a daily basis, right? Do I have what it takes? Well, do you have what it takes to be brave enough to bring yourself to the party, right? And if you have the courage to do that, right? There's a lot of people that don't have the courage and they hide behind that voice. They hide behind that persona that is, hi, I'm the voiceover voice. And that is almost like a false confidence, right, Lau? Or
It's a
like,
front.
It's
a mask.
I'm sounding. It's
Yeah,
a mask.
it's a mask.
Which is how interesting.
Yeah.
I always say a lot of character actors are very confident, right? And it's always really like when we listen to character acting, it's easy to become more emotional, right? Because we are a character, it's a dialogue, and we can formulate those emotions. They're kind of written into the copy for us. But when we're talking about some other type of copy, which may not be obvious, right? May not be, a commercial. Oh, I don't want to sound too silly, right? That's what I know about being silly, right? Be a real person. Don't sound announcery. Well, then that's my emotional, starting point, right? But in reality, you've got to do more work to figure out that story, to figure out where your emotion lies. If all you know is that you can't be announcery and you can't sell and you need to sound like you're talking to your best friend, you need more work than that. You need to do more work than that to tell the story, right, Lau?
No doubt about it. Okay, so that's the honesty that you need. And sometimes you don't possess it. So that's where we always say, circle yourself with great people to help you figure out what your most authentic you and delivery is and connection is. Because sometimes we don't see it. We don't know what it is. We don't know how to reach it.
We've never heard it.
And it takes years sometimes to get to. And that's okay. Have patience. But you really do, as you said, have to have the courage, the bravery to say, I need to feel something about this. I need to care about something. I need to connect with who I'm talking to. Because I was just working with a client yesterday coaching, and they were literally, what was it about? Oh, it was an adult acne product. It was like an infomercial type thing. And this talent is so talented. It's like so gifted, so wonderful. was not connecting in any way. And I turned that into her sister having adult acne. And surely enough, the onion peeled. And then all of a sudden, it came to her after almost an hour. She said, "Oh, I think I'm just going to talk to her because she really does have this problem, actually. And it really does bother her." And I'm like, you have to think about what's at stake for the people or person that you're talking or discussing with. Anytime you're going to sit down and have coffee or go to your diner and have breakfast, you're going to talk about a lot of stuff with your people. And there's always something at stake. What's at stake? Are you talking about politics? Are you talking about religion? Are you talking about sexuality? Are you talking about finances? High stakes on all of those. High stakes on all of those. Your kids going to school, high stakes on all of those. So why would we not think about that and connect with all the scripts that become in front of us? Because there's stakes to those scripts, right?
Absolutely. I love the way that you phrase that there's stakes to that. There's a reason why the words are there in front of you. And you have to discover really what those stakes are. Like, why? Why are you talking? What purpose is so important, really. I mean, purpose is so important. If you don't understand the purpose of why you're saying something, it's kind of like, well, let me just gloss over the words then.
It drives us. It's our lives. It's like, that's why so many actors will say, who are career actors, they'll say, what else would you have liked to do? They say, I don't know. I do what I have to do. I do what I love to do, and I do what I need to do. So there is the authenticity. It's not, I'm doing this because I want to sound a certain way. I'm doing this because I want to look a certain way. Right? We don't want a doctor that looks good and sounds good. We want a doctor that can help us with our health.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that analogy because we don't want a doctor to look or sound good. Like when I go to a doctor and I connect with a doctor, I want him to help me. I need him to cure me.
Right.
And that is the underlying reason as to why I'm listening to him in the first place. Right? And if he's not addressing my needs, if he is all concerned about how he looks and or how he sounds when he's telling me about it, I'm not going back to that doctor.
Right.
And so guess what? That's why we need that in advertising. We need you to be able to connect with that potential client when you're talking about that product.
Right.
Because there are high stakes. I love how you put that. There are stakes. And what are they? And understand your purpose for telling somebody about this product or talking about this product or communicating with someone and empathizing, right? Empathizing, yes. I know that you're upset that you have you know what I mean? Adult acne is not fun. I had it. It was just like, shouldn't I have been over this by now? I mean, it is just
it's devastating,
thing. It's frustrating.
Actually,
it's
and acne of all ages is devastating to the people who are experiencing it.
Yep.
It's stigmatizing. It's all of those things. So it's like when you think for a moment of what that's like to go through, that will help you connect in a really personalized way. I think personalization is a part of it too. So even if it's a business read of some kind, or maybe it's a how-to, like how do I organize my closet, there's a personalization about that. Like, how do I go through the process? How do I feel about it? What does it do for me? And it's a truly deeply psychological process. We see that in all the shows, from hoarders to organizing to everything. We have a lot of emotion, a lot of memories, a lot of psychology in our closet, as an example, right? So there is almost nothing that I can think of that doesn't have high stakes to it for someone who is involved with it. It may not for me, but it will for someone else.
And I want to reiterate that applies across the board, really, for any script. It applies for medical narration. It applies for corporate narration. And again, people have such misguided thoughts about what is corporate narration or what is medical narration. They're like, well, I'm just going to deliver the information articulately and clearly and teach somebody. In reality, no, there are stakes. Companies have products to help people to solve a problem, and you've got to understand what that is. Medical narration is all about either education or you're selling to solve a problem that somebody needs to come to Hoag Hospital because you have the latest technology to help with their recent cancer diagnosis. That's high stakes. You're educating young doctors about the process of electrocardiograms because you may save a life, right? There's high stakes to all of that. And in getting to understand the purpose and what those stakes are is going to be what helps you connect and what helps you be the better reader. Even if you've never heard it that way before, you're not coming to myself or Law to be coached to give a pretty read. You can do that all on your own. And as a matter of fact, I don't want you, if that's all you want to do is a pretty read.
No, I don't want it either. It's not authentic.
No, it's not authentic. And that's not what I can help you with the most, because you don't need me. I'm not going to have you give me your money for that. Give me your money if you want to really sound connected and really understand how to evaluate your scripts and analyze your scripts and understand those stakes, and then bring that script meaningfully to your audience.
Right. And if a talent says, well, I don't know much about this industry, or I don't know if I feel anything about it, I'd say two things to that. I'd say three things to that. Number one, you can train with us and become an actor. And an actor should be able to connect to every world in the world. And number two, if you don't think you can connect, if you're under a timeline, if it's not authentic, pass. Don't do it. Number three, I would say go to a location where you can feel a culture. Feel a culture. If you've never been in business, you don't know what corporations are like, go to a big building downtown in the area you live in and just walk in the lobby. Don't look scary or creepy. Just walk in the lobby and just like have a cup of coffee in your hand and sit in the lobby and watch the people. Listen to them. How do they feel? How do they dress? Are they moving fast? Are they on their cell phones? Are things busy for them? Are they moving and shaking? Try to capture that as you're looking at your script, because that's the organization, that's the industry, that's the thing you're talking about and the people you're connecting either to or you are posing as, right? Do that little bit of work. I know Johnny Depp did that for years and years as an actor. He would physically like go live in the culture, and you couldn't talk to him for like a month until he figured it out, right?
And in addition to that, go ahead and research the product, research the company, sign up for their mailing list. You're going to find out a lot. Go to their YouTube channel.
Or just talk to someone. How about talk to someone, Annie? Just talk to someone and say, hey, I'm not a solicitor and I don't want to freak you out. Can I talk to you for 5 minutes? Because I'm an actor, actually, and I might be hired by this organization. And I kind of just want to hear what your life is like when you work in the office in the day.
How do you feel about this company? How do you feel about the product that you offer?
That's going the extra mile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not, right?
I guarantee you might have somebody who would actually enjoy talking about it.
Oh, my God. They'd be excited. They'd say, how do I know you?
But yeah, especially if you say, look, I'm not here to freak you out. I'm an actor and I might be hired. So I'm curious to get your opinion. What is life like at this company? Are you stressed? I mean, do you love the product? Do you believe in the product? What can you share with me? That's a good idea.
Isn't that a great idea? By the way, Annie, we just did one on podcasts. And when you're talking about self-promotion, you're talking about self-producing. You're talking about becoming a business. Like, why not be the guy or gal on the street that does a 1-minute interview with someone who's on the street coming out from the building, right? Some of our biggest podcasts and some of our biggest programs were built out of kids that said, hey, I want to talk to entrepreneurs. Let's go around and let's just drive around. Let's just talk to them and put the best ones on. Oh, we love that stuff. We love that stuff, right?
Yep. In business, people love to talk about them. They do.
They do.
For the most part, they love to talk about themselves, right? Especially if you make them feel important. And guess what? Guess what our entire job is as voice actors, right?
They love it.
To make our potential clients or whoever it is we're talking to, right, about that product, to make them feel important. It's all about them. It's not about us or how pretty we sound when we talk about it. It's about them and how we're going to help them be better, look better, feel better, make more money, do all the things and make them the richest, most popular adults. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, it's all about them. That's why we listen. When we put our attention towards anything, it's kind of egocentrical. It's like, what do I need? What am I going to get out of this? Am I going to learn something? Is this going to give me a sale on a product that I've been looking to buy? Or is it going to give me information about the product that I've been meaning to find out? What's in it for me? Yeah. Right? What's in it for me? And so you need to, as the voice actor representing, you need to tell them, like, here's what's in it for you. I'm here to help. I'm here to deliver this information to help you. I'm not here to sound good necessarily. Well, maybe I will sound great while I do it, but I'm more sincere about wanting to help you.
So we just gave like a ton of tips about how you can actually sound authentic, and that is to live the authentic. And I like to say, too, go to lunch, go to dinner, go to coffee, go to tea. It's not about spending money. It's about going to places where you can sit with people and really talk to them. Talk with them and to them and about them. And that's how you learn how to talk authentically, is to really be in conversation with people that you're fascinated by, you're interested in, or you want to help, or you want them to help you, right? We're not just
Absolutely.
the end-all, be-all helpers. We get a lot of help from them as well. So we get a lot of information from them that is very usable for us. So
I love how this conversation went. I mean, it's just really brought up some really great new ideas for, you guys and how you can really continue to develop as an actor and continue developing your authenticity and
beautiful.
making those words really come alive.
It's a conversation about conversation.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm going to have a conversation about my sponsor, IPDTL. You too can connect and communicate like bosses. Find out more at IPDTL.com. You guys have an amazing week. Lau, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
See you next week.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.